Hello, this is Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I am your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. I am so excited to be with you today for a live lesson. And keeping with the trend, I am reviewing some of the information I shared earlier this year. So if you are watching live, be sure to say hello in the live chat and let me know that you're watching and ask any questions you have. And if you're watching the replay, you can please introduce yourself in the comments and ask any questions there. I will be sure to respond to you. So it is December 2016, and this information is timeless, but just so that you know. And what I'm doing right now is I am reviewing basically what I covered this past year. And I spent the last quarter of the year really focusing on conversation skills. And I've been calling them the essential conversation skills that you need. Essential is another way to say that it's really important, that these are the most important conversation skills that you need in order to communicate in English. And it's really important that you learn how to use these skills well. And something that I've felt over the course of my 8 or 9 years teaching is that students often learn a couple of these skills, but just the most basic ways to express themselves. And so they learn how to kind of ask questions and get clarification when they're at the beginning level of English. But now, if you're watching this video, you're at least intermediate, if not an advanced English learner. And what happens is that no one's taught you how to take those conversation skills from basic communication to more fluent, more confident, more comfortable ways of expressing yourself. So I decided that I really wanted to help you learn these essential conversation skills because they're useful in so many settings. They're useful in university, they're useful in the business, and in the business settings and workplace and the office, and they're also useful in personal relationships. And what's great about you, if you are interested in these kind of skills, is that it shows that you're motivated to sound that much more natural, to speak like a native English speaker, and to really express your mastery of the language. So, something that I mentioned recently is that I learned from listening to a podcast that when you don't know the rules, you don't know if you're making mistakes. And you can only break the rules and start expressing yourself more freely once you know what the rules are, because you know what you're not following. And the same thing goes for conversation skills because native English speakers express themselves in this natural way, right? And this is why I started talking about sounding natural in English. And it goes beyond pronunciation and the correct vocabulary to just expressing yourself as if it's just this flow, right? Everything's just flowing, everything's just being expressed naturally the way that you want to express yourself. And native English speakers, because this is their language that they are born, well, they're not born speaking, but they learn as they're little babies and kids. They start following this script, this kind of natural flow of conversation that they don't even think about. And so that's what a lot of people mean when they're talking about natural English. A lot of times when you're learning English, you want to learn how to express yourself just the way you do in your native language. I have a lot of clients who come to me because they speak English at an advanced level, and a lot of times they're unwilling to admit that their English is as advanced as it is. So they speak at an advanced level, they understand English extremely well, and yet they feel like something's missing because when they speak their native language, they understand that flow. They follow that way of expressing themselves in conversation. They don't even think about it, right? They're able to just sound really well spoken, and they're able to really express themselves clearly, and they're able to, be able to handle situations, social situations, professional situations, complicated situations, happy situations, all kinds of situations with ease without even thinking about it. And part of the reason is that the way that people communicate in your native culture, in your native language, it follows a certain flow. You know what to expect. You know what comes first, what comes next. You know how to do it well. You know how it feels when you don't do it well. Well, this kind of experience learning conversation skills in English can be more challenging because you really have to learn not only the language, right? Not only the expressions and the vocabulary and the phrasal verbs and also the grammar, but you also have to learn the culture behind it. How do people flow in conversation? How do we move from one thing to another? How do I know if someone's being polite? And how do I know if they're being too abrupt? And that's really why I've spent the last few months focusing on the most essential conversation skills you need in order to sound natural, because they're so important to feeling more confident, feeling more comfortable, and sounding that much more like a native speaker when talking. It's not about the precise language, it's about being able to move within the conversation the way that native speakers do. And if you think about it, when you think about I'm sorry, the phone just started ringing. If you think about, when sorry for that. I forgot that the phone can sometimes ring because it's not my phone. Um, just wait 1 second. Okay. So something that happens when you're and sorry about that. See, this is what happens when you have a live lesson. Sometimes you get distracted by reality. Anyway, so what happens when you're a native English speaker or when you're a native speaker? Think about when someone's speaking your language, right? When you're whatever your native language is, and you hear someone who's a non-native speaker, and you notice that something's a little off. You notice that something's not quite right, and you just don't know what to do about that, right? You're like, okay, like I can hear that something's off, and it's usually not necessarily accent. You might notice the accent, but it's actually that they're not expressing themselves the way that you do. And I've talked about this before when I talk about writing, because writing styles are very different between different languages as well. Americans, of course, we have the 5 paragraph essay, and you follow this routine, but other writing styles in Russian or writing styles in Latin, Romance languages, they tend to be more circular. And so that's why so many students, when they're learning how to write, they have trouble when they're studying at university because their writing style is just different. It's a cultural writing style. So the same thing goes for conversation skills. And so that's what I really want to emphasize to you is that the same thing happens in conversation skills, and you need to just learn the flow of conversation and learn how it works. So I hope that that explanation has helped you understand how it works and the reason why I think these essential conversation skills are so important. So, I am going to show you a presentation. I actually got carried away, which means I got really excited and I realized that I haven't really talked about some of these conversation skills on video. So, I made a really nice presentation to help you walk you through the 5 most essential conversation skills you need in English. So, just give me a moment and I will share my presentation with you. All right, so please take a look. Um, I think you can see it. Let me just switch over there we go. Okay, just so I can see it as well. Full screen. There we go. Okay, so oops, let's go back. So today we are going to talk about the 5 most essential conversation skills in English. So this is a live workshop by me, English with Kim, and I'm really excited about this. So if you have any questions as I go through the presentation, please leave a comment in the live chat and I'll be sure to answer it at the end. There'll be plenty of time to talk afterwards. So, hello once again. I'm Kim, and I'm your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. And I ask, and who might you be? So, please introduce yourself in the live chat or in the comments below and let me know who you are, where you're from, and where you're watching from today. Okay, so the first conversation skill that we're going to be talking about today is clarifying what you heard. So, clarifying what you heard is the number one skill that you need. Why? And you probably started learning this when you were learning English, right? It's because sometimes you just don't hear exactly what it is that the person said. And so, it's one of the most essential skills you need to learn from the beginning of your language learning journey, right? So you have to clarify what you heard. So, what the most important thing I want to start with as we get started is let's take a look and move on to the next slide. Okay. So, what you have to understand is that if you get in a situation where you need to clarify what you heard, please do not feel embarrassed about it, right? It's natural for native English speakers. The most important thing is if you miss what somebody said or you're not exactly sure what they said, you want to make sure you clarify. You want to make sure that you understand exactly what it is the person's saying. So, you feel like you missed a key word or phrase during an explanation, or you'd like the other person to repeat himself, there are a number of questions you can ask in order to clarify what you heard. So, many of these questions use an introductory phrase in order to make the question a little more polite. You can also start with a small apology like, sorry, just a second, or sorry to interrupt. So you'll notice when people are clarifying what they heard and making sure they understood correctly, that they tend to apologize just because they are interrupting the flow of conversation. But please do not be afraid to clarify what you heard. It is totally natural in English. We do it all the time. So let's take a look at some of these expressions. So when you are first learning English, you probably learn something like sorry, pardon, what was that? I'm sorry. What? Could you repeat that? Right, you learn these very basic phrases, which are totally good, they're totally useful, but now that you're at a more advanced level of English, you want to expand your vocabulary a little more. You want to use longer phrases and you want to sound a little more natural. So that's what I'm working on with you today, and that's why it's going beyond those phrases that I used to teach beginning English learners and teaching what I teach advanced English learners in order to help them feel more confident, especially in business situations. Would you mind repeating that for me again? And as you notice, because it's a question, my voice is going up at the end. Intonation is really important. If you say it like a robot, you say it with extremely flat tone, would you mind repeating that for me again? You sound annoyed, right? You can hear that in my voice that that sounds a little annoyed. Would you mind repeating me? Would you mind repeating that for me again? Right? You want to raise at the end. Would you mind going over that one more time? Right, that's especially useful in a presentation, right? You might have missed something or you're just not sure exactly of what you heard and if it's right, so you want the person to repeat themselves. Totally fine. Sorry, could I ask you to tell me that piece of information again? Or could I ask you to say that again? Could I ask you to repeat that again? You can use different phrases here. Could I ask you to tell me that again? Right? Tell me that number again. Tell me that figure again. Tell me that word again. Tell me that explanation again. Whatever it is, or you can just say that if the person is going to understand what you're saying. Could you clarify what you meant by and right? You can, and after that, you can use a phrase, you can use a vocabulary word, whatever it is. Maybe you didn't understand the full meaning of what they said. Maybe there's a word that confused you, or you just want to be sure that you understood correctly. Could you clarify what you meant by? I just want to be sure I understood. Could you be more specific? Right? You're raising your voice at the end, as I mentioned for all of these. I just want to be sure I understood. Right? In that case, you're showing that the reason you're asking the person to repeat themselves is in order to really clarify what they said. And because you're saying, I want to be sure I understood, you're apologizing, but you're also showing that you're taking initiative and making sure you understand. Could you be more specific? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you run it by me one more time? Right. Oops, I didn't catch that. Could you run it by me one more time? So, in this case, this question is run it by is a phrasal verb that we use to share an idea with somebody. Run it by me. So, could you run it by me one more time? Right. You're asking the person to repeat that idea another time. I don't think I got your meaning. Would you mind repeating that? Right. So if you notice my tone throughout all of these phrases is very friendly, very approachable because you're not embarrassed that you don't quite understand what the person said or you missed something. You're asking them to repeat themselves. And so by keeping that light tone, that friendly tone, the other person's going to be happy to say yes. It's not an inconvenience. I don't think I got your meaning. Would you mind repeating that? And do you see how this long phrase, these two phrases, is so much more, it just sounds more fluent, it sounds more fluid, it sounds more natural than saying something like pardon, right? That sounds very basic. This, because it's such a long phrase, it helps you sound like a native English speaker. And it also shows that your English is quite good. It's not that you don't understand English, it's that you didn't catch that last bit that they just said. Okay, so that is clarifying what you heard. The number one essential conversation skill that I think is actually, yeah, I think it's probably at the top of my list as well. If you don't understand something, you want to be sure to get clarification. So, number two is confirming your understanding. So let's take a look at confirming your understanding. So, another way to be sure you've understood what the other person is saying is to repeat what you heard using your own words. Restating the other person's idea is a great way to show that you were listening carefully. This is an advanced conversation skill, but it's really important. You're confirming your understanding by repeating back what the other person said. And this is a way of showing the person that you are listening, right? It's what we call active listening. By repeating what the other person said, not only do you confirm you got it correctly, but you're also showing the person that you were listening very carefully. It's a really, really important skill to learn. It helps the other person find a way to simplify or clarify what he or she said if you've misunderstood or misheard or misunderstood a key point. Sometimes the person speaking needs to rethink what they said and say it again, right? So, what happens is when you need to confirm your understanding, this is both good for advanced conversation skills for active listening by reiterating and repeating what the other person said and showing that you were listening. But if you're not quite sure, you think you might have missed something, by repeating it back to the person, they are understanding exactly what you understood. So that if there's a misunderstanding, if they didn't communicate exactly the way they wanted to, if it's not quite clear, they have the opportunity to correct themselves. And instead of you saying, "Oh, sorry, I didn't understand," you're trying to show them what you did understand so that they can fill in the gaps, they can fill in the information that was missing. So let's look at some phrases. So let me see if I understood correctly. And so these are ways of echoing back what the other person said. Let me see if I understood correctly. And then you rephrase what you said, what they said. Can I just check what I got from what you said, right? So can I just check? Can I just confirm what I got from what you said? I'd just like to confirm that I got that right. Right. So you're confirming once again. Oh, I'd just like to confirm that I got that right. My impression of what you said was, and then you rephrase, is that what you meant? Right. So that they can have any chance that they need to clarify if it's not quite what they meant. So what you're saying is, and then you rephrase, does that sound right? Right. So all of these, many of these are asking questions at the end, right? Is this what you meant? Is this what I should have understood? You mean rephrase, is that right? If I understand you correctly, you're saying, I think you're saying, right, this is actually a really good technique that you can use when listening to someone when they're expressing emotions of any sort. Sometimes when people are emotional, whether that's happy, sad, or frustrated, they have trouble expressing themselves perfectly in words. So you might be hearing someone, say one thing, but what they're actually saying is another thing. So you can say, I think you're saying this. And that's a way to help them kind of understand and clarify what it is that they're actually feeling. And so this is good in business settings and in personal settings. And the last one, in other words. In other words is a short phrase that we use in order to rephrase things. So you can use this when you're rephrasing your own statement, or you can use this when you're rephrasing somebody else's statement. In other words, and then you repeat it back to them. So as you can see, all of these phrases give you the opportunity to confirm your understanding by repeating what the other person said and rephrasing it in your own words. And your own words don't have to be perfect. It's just the general impression, the general idea that you got from what the person had to say. So that is conversation skill number two. Very important. Don't forget to say thank you, right? So if the person rephrases or restates as a result of you checking your understanding or or clarifying what you heard or confirming your own understanding, when they say that, don't forget to say thank you, because after the other person you're talking to has repeated what they said, provided additional information, or clarified your doubts, you want to be sure to say thank you and state that you now understand. This is kind of closing this conversation topic. So this is kind of a bonus. This is 2.5. Because once you say thank you and say that you understood, you're basically ending that particular part of the conversation. And now you can move on to other topics. So here are a couple of phrases you can use. Thanks for clarifying. I understand better now. Thank you for repeating that. It makes more sense to me. Thanks for explaining your point of view again. That helps me see where you're coming from. Thanks. We seem to be on the same page now. And on the same page means we seem to see things from the same point of view or we understand or agree. So it's a good one. And then the last one, I appreciate the clarification. Glad we agree on that, right? So all of these different phrases include a thank you phrase followed by some way of saying that you understand, right? I understand better now. It makes more sense. Makes sense is such a good phrase to use if you're not already. It's supernatural. I use it all the time. It makes sense, right? I repeat that once every few minutes. That helps me see where you're coming from, right? It helps you understand the other person's perspective. We seem to be on the same page. We seem to understand each other. Glad we agree. So all of these are showing an understanding either of the person's point of view or of what they said. So don't forget to say thank you. Hope that's clear. All right. Number 3. So we've talked about clarifying what you heard, and now we're going to talk about clarifying what you mean. So the other two, that was listening to other people. And now we're going to talk about a skill that you need when you are speaking, right? So something that's really important to understand is that if you have trouble speaking for whatever reason, it happens to native speakers, it happens to me even in this video, right? When you have trouble expressing yourself, you can fix what you have to say. You don't have to feel like, oh, I made a mistake and now I'm done talking. Now I give up and get frustrated. Instead, you just want to clarify what you mean. It is so normal to get tongue-tied or to say something that doesn't sound right or to say something that sounds too aggressive, which you didn't really mean. It's just the words that came out of your mouth. It happens. Conversation is spontaneous, right? We don't plan out everything we're saying in conversation. It's different than a presentation, although you can also have trouble in a presentation. So you want to feel confident about clarifying what you mean. And that's why this is an essential conversation skill. You want to be able to restate your own thoughts and not be flustered, not give up, not be discouraged. You want to feel comfortable doing it. So let's look at it. So it doesn't matter if you're learning English or are a native English speaker. Sometimes you need to clarify what you mean or rephrase or restate an idea. So just like in the conversation skill number 2, we're confirming our understanding and trying to convince somebody to rephrase or restate their idea. You also might need to do that as well. Someone might ask you to do it, and then you can clarify what you mean. So, using one of the following phrases or expressions signals to your listener that you need a little more time to express your idea. It is a polite way to show the other person that you need to keep talking, in a subtle way to ask them to be patient while you find the right words to express yourself. This is part of the flow of conversation. By using one of these phrases, it's not just language, right? This language signals to the other person, please be patient with me. Please don't interrupt me. Please wait for me to finish my idea. If you're having an intense debate or conversation or negotiation, sometimes you need these phrases because you need the person to just wait for a moment. You'll notice as you're talking with native English speakers that we tend to be really enthusiastic, right? Especially in American culture, right? And so sometimes not everyone is good about waiting for the other person to finish. So by using one of these expressions, you're going to be able to tell the person, hey, hold on one second, give me a moment to rephrase my idea. If other people learn languages, right, if you're speaking English with other people who are not native English speakers or people who have learned another language or work closely with people from different countries, they're normally going to give you a little space. But not everybody understands that your brain needs a little more time to process and they can get impatient or they're just so excited to jump in with their ideas. So you want to use one of these expressions in order to tell the person, hey, hold on, I'm going to clarify what I mean. So let's look at the expressions. So, first, you need to identify or admit that you need to clarify your idea. These phrases tell your listener that you recognize your mistake and would like to try again. So, if you notice in many of these conversation skills, I'm talking about identifying what's happening and then doing something about it. This is the same thing. You want to say, oh, hey, I need to clarify my idea. So, let's look at them. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. That happens to me. When the phone rang earlier, I lost my train of thought, which meant that I had to think about again what I was talking about. Conversation flows, right? What we're saying flows. And sometimes we need to gather our thoughts and start again. So if that happens, there's some sort of distraction, you get distracted even by another thought. You say, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let me start that again, right? Let me start that again. If you get tongue tied and you're just not expressing yourself well, then you say, let me start that again. And the person kind of forgives you for making the mistakes. And then you just start fresh. You just start all over. Let me start over. Similar expression. Let me start that again. Let me start over. Just saying, okay, it's not coming out right. I'm going to admit that and go back to the beginning. It shows a lot of strength in the way that you express yourself. Let's try that one more time, right? Let's try that one more time. I say this when I feel a little tongue-tied, and that happens to me quite frequently, even as a teacher of conversation skills, right? When you feel like blah, 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 that's what the tongue-tied feeling, right? You say, let's try that one more time. Like, let's go back. You can kind of have a little laugh about that and go back and start again. Let me rephrase that. I've been using this verb a lot. Let me rephrase that. It means you're going to state it in other words. Oh, one of them's not showing. Let me see. Hold on one second. That came out wrong, right? That's a very common one as well. That came out wrong. So that just means that what you said wasn't exactly what you meant to say. That came out wrong. And that's not what I meant to say, right? That's not what I meant to say. This one is especially useful if you say something that's offensive. Same with that came out wrong. Like sometimes we just kind of blurt out or just say really quickly the expression that we don't actually mean. Or we just the expression or the vocabulary word, and it can be almost offensive. Before the person reacts, you want to say, oh, that's not what I meant to say. Oh, that came out wrong, so that you can go back and fix it and express yourself better. Give me a second. Let me restate that, right? The same thing, like, hold on. Let me restate that. Let me think about it again. Let me gather my thoughts. I mentioned that one before. Let me gather my thoughts. I'm a little flustered, a little stressed out, whatever it is. Let me gather my thoughts so I can express myself better. Let me try that again. I say that one a lot. Let me try that again. Let me explain that again. All right. So, next step is once you've kind of introduced the fact that you're going to restate what it is you meant to say, now you can clarify what you mean by restating your original thoughts in different words. You can use one of these phrases to show that you're going to say things differently this time. What I mean is, right? So you'd say, let me try that again. What I mean is, and then lead into the rephrasing. What I meant was, let me put that another way. What I'm trying to say is, let me explain myself again, right? All of these phrases help you introduce what you want to say in just a different way. What I meant was, let me put that another way. What I'm trying to say is, let me explain myself again. And you notice my intonation is very happy and very friendly because I'm showing the person that I'm not upset, I'm not frustrated. I'm going to rephrase myself, and that's fine. In other words, so those are your expressions that you can kind of use in order to clarify what you mean by expressing your thoughts in different words. Totally fine. Now, unfortunately, I'm talking about these essential conversation skills, but I can't help you rephrase what you said. So you're going to have to come up with the skills that you need in order to rephrase your idea. So that's something you're going to have to practice. And actually, that's one of my top skills for improving your fluency in conversation. My top suggestions. It's that you want to be able to express things in a couple of different ways. If you're missing a vocabulary word, you want to be able to describe it using other words. And so sometimes if you have one idea, you don't want to become so tied to one way of expressing yourself that you don't come up with others. So you want to come up with several different ways to express something. All right, that's three. Let's move on to number four. So, number four is clarifying a misunderstanding. So important, right? So, in the previous conversation skill, we talked about how you want to be able to catch yourself when you clarify what you said, right? You maybe stated it wrong and you want to fix it. Well, what happens if you've already said it or the other person asks you to clarify? That's when we need to clarify a misunderstanding. It's really important. Very connected, as always. So sometimes we don't realize that the other person didn't quite understand what we said or that our idea was unclear. In that case, your listener may try to clarify what they heard or ask you to repeat yourself. And keep in mind, this is common for native speakers as much as people who are non native English speakers. And this is also something that sometimes people are just so happy to finish what they said that they're just like, okay, I finished, and they feel relieved. And there might be a need to clarify a little more information. So that's why this is an important conversation skill. It's one of the 5 most essential skills. If your listener repeats something back to you and it isn't exactly what you meant to say, you can use an expression to clarify your word, phrase, or idea. These expressions indicate that you understand that you may not have been perfectly clear and you're happy to try explaining yourself again, right? So if it's not exactly what you meant to say, please clarify, right? Don't be afraid to clarify what you said, right? It's okay. Don't feel frustrated. Don't give up. Don't feel like, oh, my English is so bad. I've talked so much this year about how so many of my students are perfectionists and once they make a mistake, they kind of give up. They say, okay, I can't express myself. I'm done. So instead, if it's not what you meant to say, use it as an opportunity, right? Change your mindset. Use it as an opportunity. You may not have been perfectly clear, or the other person may not have been listening. It's not always about you. So just say you're happy to try explaining yourself again. So let's look at it. So in American English, the word actually is often used to clarify a misunderstanding. It makes the phrase sound a little softer and a little more polite. It is important for anyone who speaks a Romance language that the word actually in English is not used to mean right now. It's actually is this weird like expression that we've just taken into our language that we use to emphasize something. And it's really good when you're clarifying a misunderstanding. And you'll see in these examples. That's not exactly what I meant, right? So if somebody states an idea to you or they say, is this what you meant? No, that's not exactly what I meant. Actually, what I meant was, and then you explain it, not whatever the other person thought. Actually, it's how we use it. I meant to say that, and then you can rephrase your idea, right? So, oh, I meant to say this, or what I meant by the word or phrase was, right? So, maybe they just didn't understand a technical term, right? That doesn't necessarily have to do with your English. They might just not have that in their vocabulary, especially if you're a specialist, right? So, what I meant by was, I was actually trying to suggest that. So you notice I'm stressing actually in order to emphasize that no, that's not what I meant. I was actually trying to suggest that and then I was actually trying to say that. I was actually trying to express that. And then you can explain it in better words. Let's see if I can explain myself better. And let me try to explain that another way. Sorry, hold on. Let me try to explain that another way. So, if someone is expressing a doubt, then you can clarify this misunderstanding or, rephrase it in a different sort of way. So, all of these phrases are so useful for restating your idea, right? They're a way of saying, okay, I recognize that I didn't quite say what I wanted to say. And so now I'm going to rephrase my idea. So, those are the first four skills. And now we're on to number five. And this is one of my favorites because it's changing the subject. So, all of the previous ones are about really interacting with other people and making sure you understand what's going on, right? Making sure they understand, making sure you understand. Handling that well. So, this skill is really important because if you are having a conversation, you're going to need to change the subject. And you can change the subject for good reasons, right? You might change the subject because, you talked and talked and talked about one topic and there's nothing left to say. Or you might change the subject because someone mentioned something uncomfortable and you don't want to talk about it. Or you may need to change the subject because what the person is talking about isn't that interesting, especially in a group situation. Maybe there's only two people interested and there are six people involved in the conversation. So, changing the subject is a super useful skill. So, like I said, there are many situations when you may need to change the subject. When you're having a great conversation, when you're having a great conversation, but a particular topic has come to its natural conclusion, you need to change the subject. Otherwise, if someone asks you a question that you really don't feel like answering, you may want to change the subject to avoid getting into a long discussion that just isn't right. It just isn't good right now. You may also want to change the subject if you're just not interested in talking about the current topic, right? So, those are the three ways that you can potentially want to change the subject. So, there are five strategies that I suggest for changing the subject. Luckily, many of them use language that you've practiced when working with other conversation skills. And I will include some links to other conversation skills that can help you change the subject. So, because this is a short lesson, I'm not going to go, and I've actually have other videos on changing the subject with more information. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what the five strategies are, and then I'll talk about the phrases you need that are most useful for changing the subject. But there's five strategies, and you can look at them in more depth later. All right. So one is to change the subject by asking a question, right? We've practiced asking questions. So you can change the subject by just asking a question, asking a different question, and there you go, new subject, done. You can change the subject by introducing a new topic, and that's the one I'll talk about a little bit more today. By introducing a new topic, by completely moving on to something else. You can change the subject by giving a compliment. Compliments are some of the most useful conversation skills in English. They didn't make the top five, but they're definitely in the top 10. Just change the subject by giving a compliment. Why? Because when you give a compliment, you distract the other person and you move on. Number four, change the subject by creating a distraction, right? And this can be, like I said, giving a compliment or by doing something, right? Walking away, getting a drink, going to the bathroom, um, you know, pulling somebody else into the conversation. You create a distraction, and next thing you know, you're not talking about this other thing. People they're not so focused on what they have to say that they can always remember it. And then number five, abruptly change the subject. So this is something that you do when there's a frustrating situation, right? When it's just something like, okay, we're not talking about this, and you end it very quickly. I'm not going to talk about this, but the video will help you understand that. I'll include a link below to my other video on changing the subject. So the key to changing the subject skillfully is to acknowledge what the other person said and find a way to move on. It's strange to change the subject without any sort of transition phrase or connection to what the person said, and it can make the person feel ignored. And so, this is why it's a conversation skill. It's not just about the language that you're using, it's the fact that when you change the subject, you want the other person to feel like you heard them, right? You want them to understand that you listened, that you were having a conversation, and just naturally move on to another topic of conversation. So, as a non-native English speaker, the reason it's so important to do this skillfully is that if you just change the subject, the person might just think, oh, they didn't understand me, or they didn't quite get what I was talking about, and they might want to still talk about it. By doing it skillfully, you're moving right along to the other conversation topic and you're moving straight on. But if you don't acknowledge what the other person said in some way, then they might keep trying to have that conversation with you, and it's going to get more frustrating for you. So, the best way to handle this is to agree in some way with the person's opinion, emotion, or perspective, and then bring in the topic you want to talk about, right? So, you have to agree with them in some way. And the conversation, communication skills experts talk about how this is like saying yes, and if you want to bring up something related, right? You want to talk about something somewhat related to what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. And oh, I found out about this really cool movie that's starting soon, right? You're ready to move on. Oh, yes. And there's something else to mention that's somewhat related that we can talk about. Or it's saying, yes, but if you want to bring up something different, yes, but, and then change the subject to something different. So if someone's asking you about a political issue or, a discussion topic that's just really heated, right? Really difficult to talk about. You're like, oh, okay, yes, but okay, let's look at this other thing. And then you change the subject to something else. So, after you acknowledge the curiosity if the person's asking you a question or the interest of the other person if it's something that they're excited to talk about, then you can bring up a new topic. So, after saying this kind of yes and or yes but, you can bring up a new topic. So, let's take a look at some of the most useful expressions in transition words. So, and then that's a transition. If you haven't noticed, I use the word so a lot when speaking. I need to find a better transition word, but it's my favorite. Speaking of, right? So this is a great linking phrase. Like speaking of movies, there's one I want to see soon. Speaking of which, right? That's just referring back to what the person said. Speaking of which, oh, I saw Sarah the other day at the store. Changing the subject, talking about whatever the topic is, and then you lead into a new subject. By the way tends to mention, oh, it's just barely related, but by the way, oh, this reminds me that I wanted to tell you. Anyway, and anyway, it's important to have light tone if you're trying to change the subject very nice. Like, anyway, maybe the topic came to an end. That's a good one when the topic came to an end. Anyway, oh, there's something else I wanted to talk about. Bring it up. That reminds me, right? That reminds me is such a good one. Like, like you've sparked something in their memory or they've sparked something in your memory and you want to change the topic to something else. Oh, before I forget. Same thing. It's just to mention something that you want to mention that you before you forget, because otherwise you might forget because you're getting older and your memory is not as good, right? Oh, I wanted to mention, right? That's something else. Let's think about we need to talk about, right? That's if there's several different topics that you already plan to talk about, whether you're catching up with a friend or you're in a business meeting, right? You're moving on to something else that's just as important. Oh, I wanted to tell you, right? So there's something else that you want to say to the person. Funny you should mention that, right? So that's like, oh, okay, you mentioned something interesting. Funny you should mention that. And then bring up something just barely related. And oh, hey, we haven't talked about X topic yet. And then you move on to that. So, something I want to point out is if you noticed while I was giving examples of these different expressions, I naturally mentioned some of the others. It's not like I studied this and memorized this. This is just the natural part of native speaker conversation is that we use these phrases. They signal that we're moving right along to another topic. So, what it's really important for you is start paying attention to how often you notice these different phrases and learning how to use them yourself because they're so natural to us. We don't think about it. We just know that this is a nice, kind, easy way to transition to another topic. And that's why it's one of the most essential conversation skills you need in English. So let's review. First, we talked about the 5 most essential conversation skills according to me. And this is what I call the core anatomy of a conversation in English. These are the most important skills. Once you have these skills, you can feel confident about conversations and then just get more skills that will help you with all of these things. So here they are. Number one was clarifying what you heard. Number two was confirming your understanding. Number three was clarifying what you mean. Number four is clarifying a misunderstanding. And number five is changing the subject. So those are the most essential conversation skills in English, according to me. And I'm going to check right now to see if anyone has any questions. So if you have any questions for me, I will be answering them very shortly. Technology can make it a little bit challenging to open everything at the same time. I love that I can do these live lessons and work with you on this. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Takes me, I forgot to open up the live chat. I'm going to look it up. All right. Let's see. Is anyone asking any questions? Nope, no questions. Okay. But thank you for the thumbs up. I see them. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, please be sure to just leave a question below. And I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, let me go back because it's looking a little blurry. Let's go back. Okay, so those are the five most essential conversation skills. I think if you master these skills, you'll be able to have a conversation and feel more encouraged about the conversation that you're having in English because you'll feel able to handle unexpected situations. And that's why for me, these are the key skills. By feeling like you can actually handle these conversations and handle the unexpected, like not expressing yourself perfectly, not understanding perfectly, not being sure if you understood correctly. Instead of feeling insecure, you're going to be able to use these skills in order to flow very naturally into the conversation. So I highly suggest, if you haven't already, please study these skills. I will include links below and a link to kind of a summary post of all of these essential conversation skills. So that is what I think is the core anatomy, what's most important. So if there are any questions, oh, I forgot to turn on to this. Any questions? So like I said, remember all of these conversation skills work together, right? The conversation skills work together, which means yes, you want to learn all these different skills, but as you noticed, some of them are connected, right? Somebody might ask you a question, and so you know how to respond to it because you're able to anticipate, oh, they need me to clarify. Here's the skill I need to do, and the skill I need to use in order to clarify. Oh, I have a question. Let me restate what they said so that will encourage them to clarify. All of these conversation skills work together. It's a system of conversation. If you work to improve one skill, this will not only help you sound more natural, but it will strengthen other skills you've already mastered. So maybe you feel really comfortable with questions, but you're not really comfortable changing the subject. You'll notice you feel comfortable asking questions. So changing the subject often involves asking a question or bringing up another topic and then asking a question. So working on these skills helps you improve one thing at a time in order to work all together. They kind of build on top of each other. So, something I would like to encourage you to check out is what I am calling Conversation Anatomy. And this is my brand new program, which is open as of today, which will help you understand and participate confidently in conversations in English. In Conversation Anatomy, you'll learn the way conversations really flow in English, how the different strategies connect and work together, and how to communicate confidently in English like native speakers. So, conversationanatomy.com is my new program. So, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say hello to you once again. Let's see. Okay, here I am. So that was my lesson on the top 5 conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. The most essential skills, the ones that I think are most important to work on first. All of the other skills I've talked about: giving and receiving compliments. I've talked about interrupting, responding to interruptions, interjecting opinions, sharing ideas, showing enthusiasm with other people. All of these skills are important, but if you don't know how to handle not expressing yourself perfectly and recovering from that, you want to start there. You want to start with this core anatomy, with these core skills. So it was really fun teaching this live lesson. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions in the chat again. Any questions in the live chat? Pop out chat. No questions for me? That is fine. So that's the end of the live lesson. If you're interested, I am going to share a little bit more about conversation anatomy, and you're welcome to stay for that and ask me questions about that. But that's the end of the lesson for today. And I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions now or later, please feel free to leave a comment below, send me a message, and I'll be happy to answer it. If there's any conversation skills you're really excited about learning, please be sure to tell me as well. So once again, I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com, and I'm your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. So let's take a look at conversation anatomy. I'm really excited about this. I've been working on this behind the screens for quite a while, so I want to share it with you. All right, here we go. All right, so this is my brand new program. It is live as of about an hour ago. So this is a program called Conversation Anatomy because I started thinking about it. And anatomy is something that you study in biology, right? You study how all the systems of the body work together. That's anatomy. But conversations also have an anatomy. All the systems work together. So I realized that so many students want to learn how to express themselves in English just like they do in their own language. And so I decided to create this program, which is a program where you will learn and develop the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural. It's a membership program where you will make consistent, measurable, and steady progress toward your goal of communicating like a native English speaker. You'll have support and guidance from an experienced conversation teacher and language coach, that is me, and be able to practice with motivated classmates. I created this because people kept asking me for help. How do I find people I can practice these skills with? Because not all native English speakers are that interested in this either. And you might not be able to find people who really want to improve conversation skills. So this is at conversationanatomy.com. If you notice here, there's this little chat box. And if you click on it, you can actually chat with me if I'm online. So if you have any questions about the program later, you can look at it there and say hello. So I have this description. Does this sound like you? You've been studying English for years. Maybe you live in an English-speaking country, but you know you aren't communicating the same way as native speakers. You know that your vocabulary and grammar is good, even excellent, and you're able to get your point across, but you feel like something is off. You feel like you speak in short, simple sentences, while native speakers seem so expressive and interesting. When you have casual conversations in English, you find it hard to jump in and participate in a conversation. When you're in business meetings or academic discussions, you don't feel confident about the way you're expressing your thoughts. You're frustrated because you can express yourself really well in your native language. When you speak your language, people always tell you how well spoken you are, and you feel relaxed, confident, and comfortable. You want this feeling in English. You want to sound more natural in English, maybe even as good as a native speaker. You want to feel comfortable speaking up in conversations. You want to be able to decipher and understand the flow of conversation. You want to strengthen and improve the language skills that are most useful for communicating in English. You want to sound more professional, handle everyday conversations with ease, and feel confident and friendly in social situations. This is what the program will give you. And you can watch this little video with me if you would like. So you are in the right place. We both know that having better conversations in English is essential to making friends, getting along with colleagues, and being trusted to get work done in English. I designed this program for people like you and me, people who understand that speaking English is not just about vocabulary and grammar, it's about truly communicating well. So if you are ready to really understand English conversations and start expressing yourself like a native speaker, then join me inside Conversation Anatomy today. So there's a little description of me, is that I work with motivated non-native English speakers who want to sound more natural, more professional, and more fluent in English so that they can achieve their personal, professional, and academic goals. I focus on the essential conversation skills so that you and your meaning can be more easily understood when speaking. It's not about perfect pronunciation and perfect grammar. It is about your meaning, making sure your meaning is clear. And I know how important it is to be able to connect with other people in a language that isn't our first. I now speak Spanish fluently, but it wasn't always that way. If you're in my email community, I've talked a lot about how when I first arrived to Argentina, I couldn't express myself at all. So I know I learned these skills for myself in Spanish, and I want to help you get there in English. So I get it. You want to feel included and fit in when having conversations in English without always having to apologize or explain what you mean. And there's a little picture of some of my students and a comment from one of my students about how communication is so important. So, let me introduce you to Conversation Anatomy. It is a membership program you'll finally learn, practice, and master the essential conversation skills you need to communicate like a native English speaker. And as I already mentioned, I created this program because learners like you kept asking me if there's a way to connect with other people who want to practice speaking English at a high level. You learn so much faster when you work alongside other people who have the same goals as you, when everyone can ask questions and get answers at the same time, when you're guided, encouraged, and supported by a dedicated, hardworking teacher, and that is me. So each month, we'll focus intensively on one of the essential conversation skills in English so that you truly understand the language we use, how it fits into a normal conversation, why we use specific language for certain purposes, and how you can start using it when speaking English. Because you will learn a new skill each month, your progress will be consistent, giving you enough time to master one important concept before moving on to the next one. Month by month, you'll gain more skills and have more confidence using them together. That's why it's called Conversation Anatomy. All the skills work together. By the end of your time in the program, you'll feel like a conversation pro in English and speak comfortably, confidently, and clearly. Obviously, legally, I can't promise anything, but it's that I know that these skills will really help you feel more confident. You have to put in the work in order to improve your speech, but this is what I really think will happen. So, what's included? It is will include a private membership site where that you can access anytime, where you can download videos, MP3s, and PDF worksheets, attend live sessions, and access recordings. It will include brand new class materials each and every month, including live lessons, just like this one, Q&A sessions, and group practice sessions, so that you have immediate access to me and can learn from and work with each other. You have permanent access to the materials for each month you remember. You will have access to premium content like the Core Anatomy Video Vault and all the special workshops I do. For example, 10 ways to sound more polite when speaking and how to give and receive compliments and connect in English. These are not available to other people. It will be available just to you, along with the Core Anatomy Video Vault, where I will have videos for each of these skills I just talked about. And you will have MP4, which is video, MP3, and PDF downloads so you can practice your conversation skills when you're offline, even when traveling or exercising. And there will be a supportive private membership community on Slack where you'll find me and your classmates talking all about skills you need to have amazing conversations in English. Very important is that Slack is so much better than Facebook groups because you can follow conversation threads. It's private, you're not distracted, and it's just a beautiful interface. So that's why I'm really excited to move on to Slack. Facebook is too distracting, and I really want to be able to respond to your questions and really be there for you and the other members of the community. There is also a Plus program, and if you are a Plus member, you will have direct access to me through WhatsApp or Telegram, to voice chat apps, so that you can practice conversation skills with me through voice recordings. It's my favorite way to send conversations back and forth. And if you're a VIP member, you will get 2 one-hour one-to-one practice sessions each month on Skype or Google Hangouts, where you can practice these skills and get detailed feedback directly from me. So you can just join and get all of the community and all the downloads at the standard price, or you can upgrade depending on your needs. So you'll gain even more. You'll develop and use skills that enable you to connect to others and engage in natural conversation. You'll learn how to express your emotions, feelings, and attitude in ways that truly reflect your ideas. You'll master communication strategies that will enable you to achieve your personal, professional, and academic goals. You'll finally fit in with native speakers and feel comfortable in conversations and not have to worry that what you say will surprise or offend people. You'll feel like you belong because you're able to navigate and even lead conversations in English. Finally, right? That's the most important thing, leading conversations. This is what native speakers do, and you can learn it too. Let me be your guide, your coach, and your teacher. Join Conversation Anatomy and work with me today. And you can join by clicking the button. So I'm not going to read through everything, but it's just a reminder that there's live sessions, private chat community. You can download all the materials and study anytime. And I walk you through like ways for you to decide if this is for you or it's not for you. If you decide it's for you, click join now. And there's some more information about things that you'll actually gain by joining Conversation Anatomy. One of the most important things, they're real practical skills that will immediately help you communicate better in the office, at school, or with friends. This is a unique program. As far as I know, no other English teacher is offering something like this just on conversation skills. It's unique, it's one of a kind, and it's focused specifically on conversation skill. It's for you if you're dedicated and you really want to connect with other people. I am not just talking about understanding conversations. As a perfectionist and as a very good language learner, I understood conversations long before. My listening skills were amazing. I understood the conversations long before I led them, participated in them, and contributed to them. I want to teach you how to lead them, participate in them, and contribute to them, not just understand. You already understand, right? You understand your listening skills are good. So I know you have the language background. Let's put it together and get you speaking with confidence. So imagine joining Conversation Anatomy and being able to start a conversation in English with anyone, anywhere, knowing how to transition confidently between topics, figuring out how to share your opinion with confidence, and most importantly, without sounding rude, feeling confident that the questions you're asking are appropriate, interesting, and basically ensure that you'll have a great conversation. It's all about the questions. And understanding how to respond to other people in a way that keeps the conversation going and shows that you're interested and engaged in what they're saying. How would that feel? And I'm offering some limited time bonuses for the holidays. It's the holidays. I'm so excited about 2017. So there's some special gifts. I know you're busy. I know you want progress, but I also know how much my students benefit from gaining confidence when they learn how to ask questions and interact with native speakers. And finally, understanding the natural flow. I want you to start the year off right. So I'm including these bonuses, which are only available for 1 week if you join before December 21st. So bonus number one, if you sign up by December 21st, you get a free 30-minute session with me where I will focus on you and what you personally need to do to have better conversations in English. That's basically like getting your first month for free. It's either the month is for free or the session is for free. It's free. It's a great deal. And the program officially starts on January 1st, but when you sign up today, you'll also get immediate access to the private Slack group where you can ask questions and get answers from me and other founding members. So when you sign up and you pay, you immediately get sent the link in order to join the Slack group for Conversation Anatomy. And the thing is that the program starts on January 1st. So you basically get these 2 weeks of free chat in the program, and then you won't pay again until February 1st, because that's when that will be your second month. So it's a really good deal. You get a lot of access to me in holidays, which is a good time to learn all those skills about the holidays. And like I said, there's a VIP and a plus option, and this gives a little more information. These prices for VIP and plus are low. There are discounted prices for the holidays. If you're a founding member, they will go up, and I mention here. So you can see here's the prices for each of the programs for Standard, Plus, and VIP. I show you what's included for each of them, and you can join based on what's right for you. And then if you have questions, I've answered quite a few, I think at least 10 questions here that you can click on and get your answers. And what I really want to encourage you to do is join me today as a founding member. Now's the time, because this is going to be a small community. You'll get personal attention from me and really get to know the other people well. The program's online, so you can practice anywhere, anytime, and you don't have to show up at the right time. It's okay if you don't always have time to come to the live lessons, you can learn at another time. Like I said, you can join today for less than half the price of my normal teaching rates, and you get so much more. And I'm really excited to work with you. So let's get started together. Join me today as a founding member. And if you have any questions or you want to give a subscription as a gift, you want to just contact me. This will send you to my contact page. And if I'm online, you can chat with me using the little box and ask me any questions you have. So I hope that you're interested, or at least interested in learning more. And I'm really excited about this program. I've been working on this for months now, and it's finally here. So that's it. So I'm going to go back to the video, say hello to you once again. All right. All right, so that was my little spiel, my information about conversation anatomy. I'm gonna see if anyone has any questions in the live chat. Let's see. Okay, no. Oh, hello from Malaysia. Hi, Dora. Hi. Sorry, I didn't see that until just now. Thank you for watching. I hope that that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, always send me an email, respond in the comments. And yeah, that's about it for me. So thank you. I am Kim from English with Kim and from Conversation Anatomy. Hope to see you soon. And it was great talking with you. Goodbye.